Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's time for Actual English. I am Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 357, and it's time for Pets and Animals 2, well, abandonment. So we'll focus on animal abandonment. What is to abandon a person or an animal? It means to just throw away. That may be a rough word, but it means to just, not care for. If you abandon an animal, it means to just let an animal go out on the streets. You no longer own it, okay? So there are a lot of abandoned animals, pets that once had owners but no longer have owners because their owners have just let them out on the streets. And it's a very, very sad situation, sad reality, although it's wonderful that we're seeing more and more of these animal shelters opening up. But there is a problem with more animals being abandoned, with more homeless animals being found. Although we do have many more animal shelters to take care of these animals, they don't keep them for very long. They keep them for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks at maximum, and they put them to sleep if their owners do not come to find them. And they don't have enough money to maintain these shelters. So that's a sad reality. Anyhow, let's talk about today's topic by first of all beginning with actual talk.
Kelly, my mum's boyfriend is Italian and they live in Italy, and he has an animal rescue shelter. He saves animals that are abused or old or roaming the streets and dying and people don't want. So
nice.
He does good work, yeah. What's your opinion on that type of animal shelters? And
come to think of it, there are a lot of strays near my neighborhood, and I often see them and I wonder what happens to these animals, like cats, dogs. That's mostly what I see. The occasional forest animal that's wandered down from the park, but that's not a domesticated animal. I don't think they have as happy endings here. I know in Canada we're kind of lucky. We have a smaller population and we have a lot of societies, but to my knowledge the law is that if an animal goes to a shelter, if someone is kind enough, and I don't know about attitudes here for everybody, but I would like to think people would take it to somewhere. To take it to a shelter, it has 3 weeks, and then that's it. But a lot of fostering is going on these days. A lot of vets are making space in their hospitals. I hear on Facebook, I can see. There's Animal Rescue Korea is a group that I see on Facebook a lot. That's a wonderful thing, though. I would hate to think of an animal losing its life, and I don't know who would abandon an animal. Like, why?
I think it's very harsh. I know with my mum's boyfriend, he rescues really old animals, and they don't get put down after 3 weeks. He has over 100 dogs on his place, and he does really special work and cares for them until they die. And some are very old and very sick, so he's a very special guy. But I think people who care for animals are very. There's something deeply caring about them, and so he saved so many little lives, so many little souls,
Bless him.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now Gareth has shared a very heartwarming story, something very warm and nice to hear about his mother's boyfriend. They currently do live in Italy, and yes, he's taking care of many, many, many animals. Such a wonderful thing to do. Now, Kelly has mentioned something about seeing a lot of street animals or stray animals in her neighborhood. So let's find out in more detail what they talked about. Here we go. Gareth began by saying, Kelly, my mom's boyfriend is Italian. So he's Italian and they live in Italy. Okay, we're talking about Gareth's mother's boyfriend. Here we go. He has an animal rescue shelter. Okay, I did mention animal shelter. They're also called animal rescue shelters. So what are these animal rescue shelters? A shelter is like a home, a temporary home, okay? And these are places where they rescue animals, or if people bring in rescued animals, they keep animals there, okay, at their shelter, meaning they take care of them for a given time period. So usually if we find homeless dogs, cats, any kind of animals that are injured perhaps even, yes, it's always best to take them to the nearest animal rescue shelter or animal shelter. And the other point is, he has an animal rescue shelter. He saves animals. He saved their lives, okay? Now, these animals are either abused or old or roaming the streets and dying. And these animals are also animals that people do not want. Okay, so he's giving us, some examples of what kinds of animals are kept at this animal rescue shelter. First of all, what his mother's boyfriend does is to save animals, okay? So, he saves animals that are abused, okay, or old. Roaming the streets, R-O-A-M, roam. There is a service called roaming service that people make use of when we travel overseas, right? Whenever it comes to our cell phones or mobile phones. But roam itself as a verb means to wander without an aim or without a purpose or a set destination. We do see animals walking around the street, okay, right? They just wander the streets, which means to roam. Okay, so animals that are roaming the streets, wandering the streets, and dying, and perhaps animals that people don't want. Okay, now, Kelly says, oh, nice. Nice about the fact that this guy, this gentleman, is a very wonderful guy. He saves animals. Anyhow, Garrett says, what's your opinion? What do you think? What's your opinion on those types of animal shelters? So he is asking what Kelly thinks about animal shelters. She says, come to think of it. When would you say come to think of it? Come to think of it is something you would say when you're considering a matter. When you think about something and say, after thinking about it, or come to think about it, or come to think about it, okay? Think of it. There are a lot of strays near my neighborhood. I did mention stray animals, homeless animals, street animals. You may have heard stray cats a lot, right? Stray cats, street cats. Stray basically means homeless. Okay, animals that don't have homes or owners are stray animals. So she's saying that there are many strays. Can be dogs, cats, any type of animals. Just animals without homes, okay? Strays near her neighborhood. And I often wonder, what happens to these animals? So she's curious, what happens to these poor stray animals? Like cats and dogs, that's mostly what I see. So cats and dogs, they are mostly the types of animals or strays that Kelly usually sees in her neighborhood. Let's move on. She says, the occasional forest animal. Occasional is what? If you say that something happens occasionally, you're saying that it happens irregularly. Okay, not very often, okay, sometimes, occasional. So she's saying the occasional forest animal that's wandered down from the park. So she's talking about forest animals that wander down from the park that she sees occasionally, okay? But that's not a domesticated animal. Domesticate. Domesticated animals are animals we often keep as pets. So pets are domesticated animals. Even animals on farms, they're domesticated animals as well. But of course, let's say wild animals such as tigers and lions and cheetahs, we would not call them domesticated animals. We're talking about animals that are kept as pets usually. That's why she says forest animals. They are not domesticated animals. I don't think that they have as happy endings here. No, they don't have happy endings because they often get into accidents. You know, they're wandering the streets. They're not home where they belong. Parks, forests, mountains. They somehow come to villages and they wander around, but people are afraid of them, so we try to kill them. We try to rescue them too, but sometimes they do wander into the roads and streets and may be hit by cars. So that's a way of losing their lives. So they do not have happy endings. They have sad endings. They end up injured or dead. I know in Canada, she talks about Canada, we're kind of lucky. Why? Because we have a smaller population. I see. To my knowledge, meaning to my understanding, as far as I know, to my knowledge, to my understanding, the law is that if an animal goes to a shelter, that is if, okay, if an animal goes to a shelter, or if, that is, somebody is kind enough to take it to a shelter, it has 3 weeks. What does she mean by this? The animal has 3 weeks. She's saying that the animal that is taken to a shelter has 3 weeks to live, okay? Because they usually put them down. They put them to sleep if their owner doesn't come or if nobody adopts them because there are too many. So that's what she means. It has 3 weeks to live. And then that's it, meaning that's the end. But a lot of fostering is going on these days. Fostering, we'll take a look at that. They're being taken care of these days. A lot of vets, okay? A vet, V-E-T, is an animal doctor, but we also call animal hospitals or clinics a vet as well. Vets. So a lot of vets, many vets are making space in their hospitals. Meaning, a lot of animal clinics, animal hospitals, a lot of vets are maybe making extra space for stray animals, abandoned animals. So they're taking them in, trying to save their lives, okay? She says Animal Rescue Korea, this is an example she's giving us, is a group that I see on Facebook a lot, okay? That's a wonderful thing. I would hate to think of an animal losing its life. If you say that a person loses his or her life, or an animal loses its life, you're saying that he or she, or it, the animal, dies. So she's saying, oh, you know, I would hate to see these poor animals losing its lives, dying. And I don't know who would abandon, just throw away an animal. I think, why? She's saying, I ask myself, why would people abandon animals? Why would they do that? Here we go. Now Gareth starts talking. He says, yeah, it's very harsh. It's harsh, it's tough, it's rough. My mom's boyfriend rescues really old animals. So here we go. We're talking about his mother's boyfriend again. What does he do? He saves animals. He also rescues animals, but old animals. They don't get put down after 3 weeks. Here we go. Now, Kelly was talking about how usually if an animal is taken to an animal shelter, they have 3 weeks. Meaning they have 3 weeks to live. But Gareth is talking about his, mother's boyfriend. He rescues old animals. He takes animals in and they don't get put down after 3 weeks. Put down here means to be put to sleep, okay? A very harsh word would be to kill them, okay? These animals are killed. But a softer way of saying that would be that these animals are put down. They are put to sleep forever. Okay? They're not put down after 3 weeks. What happens? He has over 100 dogs on his place. Okay. Now, I've added in here. Why? Because usually you would say that you have something in your place, meaning in your house, in your residence. But the reason that Gareth said on is perhaps, maybe because his mother's boyfriend has a large piece of land. In that case, the animals are on that land, on that piece of land. Outdoors, perhaps. That's why he said on, so keep that in mind. The point is he has many, many animals, over 100 dogs at his place, on his place. He does really special work and cares for them until they die. This is the important part. Until they die, he takes care of all of these animals, every single one of them. Some are very old. Some are very sick. So he's a very special guy. I would have to agree. He saves so many little lives. He saves so many little souls. And of course, Kelly says, bless him, that's wonderful. Now this brings us to an end of the conversation, but yes, we not only just talked about animal abandonment, how many animals are abandoned for ridiculous reasons sometimes, but it's wonderful to think, we have hope. It's great to think that there are people out there that are warm-hearted, that have warm hearts, that are caring and trying very hard to save these animals' lives. So perhaps the next time you have the opportunity, you see a stray cat, stray dog wandering the streets, you can do something to help, right? Okay. Think a bit more about animal abandonment as we listen to Actual Talk one more time.
Kelly, my mum's boyfriend is Italian and they live in Italy, and he has an animal rescue shelter. He saves animals that are abused or old or roaming the streets and dying and people don't want. So
nice.
He does good work, yeah. What's your opinion on that type of animal shelters? And
come to think of it, there are a lot of strays near my neighborhood, and I often see them and I wonder what happens to these animals, like cats, dogs. That's mostly what I see. The occasional forest animal that's wandered down from the park, but that's not a domesticated animal. I don't think they have as happy endings here. I know in Canada we're kind of lucky. We have a smaller population and we have a lot of societies, but to my knowledge, the law is that if an animal goes to a shelter, if someone is kind enough, and I don't know about attitudes here for everybody, but I would like to think people would take it to somewhere. To take it to a shelter, it has 3 weeks, and then that's it. But a lot of fostering is going on these days. A lot of vets are making space in their hospitals. I hear on Facebook, I can see. There's Animal Rescue Korea is a group that I see on Facebook a lot. That's a wonderful thing, though. I would hate to think of an animal losing its life, and I don't know who would abandon an animal. Why?
I think it's very harsh. I know with my mum's boyfriend, he rescues really old animals, and they don't get put down after 3 weeks. He has over 100 dogs on his place, and he does really special work and cares for them until they die. And some are very old and very sick, so he's a very special guy. But I think people who care for animals are there's something deeply caring about them, and so he saved so many little lives, so many little souls,
Bless him.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for Actual Expressions. Are you ready to go over some vocab words and the patterns? Okay, then let's do it together. Roam is a very important word related to our topic, roaming. Now, roaming, yes, of course, we've heard that word many, many times, but today's roam has a different meaning. It means to meander. Okay, it's not meander, it's meander. Drift, wander, as in W-A-N-D-E-R. This means to walk, stroll, just move about without a purpose, without a destination. Okay, to roam. roam, okay? What about stray? Stray is an easy word to pronounce, but it means homeless, lost, abandoned, not having a home, not having an owner. So we see many stray cats and dogs. We see more stray cats than dogs. But of course, any animal that is homeless, that is lost or abandoned, is a stray animal. Moving on to occasional. This is easy. Occasional, which means sometimes or at an irregular interval. So irregular, sporadic. This is a wonderful word, so please practice that. Sporadic. Random is another one. What about domesticated? Here we go. Domesticated. Domesticated. It's more of a sound. Domesticated. So if an animal is domesticated, it is tamed or trained. That's why we say that pets are domesticated animals, or animals we see on farms. We're not talking about wild animals. We're talking about tamed or trained animals that are kept as pets. They are domesticated animals. Moving on to, come to think of it. This is something you would say in a situation where you think, you know, I thought about it, and by the way, okay, when you're considering a matter. Here we go. Come to think of it, I think I was supposed to bring some dessert to the party. So this is something you would say kind of out of the blue, all of a sudden. Come to think of it, I think I was supposed to bring some dessert to the party. Okay? So when a thought comes to your mind suddenly, or when you're talking about something and you think and say, wait a minute, come to think of it. Okay? I think I was supposed to bring some dessert to the party. And one more pattern, to my knowledge. This is another way of saying to my understanding. Okay? To my understanding. To my understanding. To my knowledge. Here we go. To my knowledge, I believe Samantha is going to win Employee of the Month. So to my knowledge, as I know, as I understand, to my knowledge, I think, okay, as far as I know, I believe Samantha is going to win Employee of the Month. Okay, so as far as I know, okay, is another way of saying to my knowledge. Practice these more on your own, everyone. Job well done.